This is the 77 WABC Minicast.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC and some affiliated stations throughout the country. Thanks so much for joining on this Valentine's Day weekend. I hope you got your sweetheart some chocolates or a card or taking them out for dinner. I have to do that with my wife because I missed Valentine's Day last year, so I'm going to get out of hot water by taking her out to a nice dinner tonight. My next guest is Robert Wolf. Many of you who watch Fox News know that Robert is a contributor, a frequent contributor at Fox News and Fox Business News. He also was the former chairman of UBS Bank, and so is one of the smartest financial people I know. He is a Democrat. I am a Republican. We like to spar, and we do it in a friendly way. Robert Wolf, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me on, Steve.
So let's get right down to it, Robert.
Always enjoy talking to you.
Me too. So I'm going to get right down to it. I started out the hour by saying I think we've got a very healthy economy. I think Trump deserves a lot of credit for this. I'm not saying everything's perfect, but I think things are heading in the right direction. On the other hand, you're seeing polls show that a lot of Americans are upset about the affordability issue. They don't feel like things are going in the right direction. What is your take off your political hat for a minute? What is your overall take on where we stand financially and economically as a country right now?
So, Steve, thanks for asking. And I like to believe when I talk about the economy as a real capitalist, I try to only use facts. And obviously, there's a few curves in there that could go one way or the other. It feels like the glass is half empty or half full to me, depending what you want to talk about. Certainly, January numbers on both CPI and jobs were strong. They came in higher and lower than expected, and those are two good bookends. I think 2025 was a tough year. If you kind of really look at it and you see some of the revisions for jobs, and I know revisions happen every year, but for the most part, we averaged about 15,000 new jobs a month. That is not a good number. That is the very low end of
it's a low number, definitely.
It's a low number. So you have to look at where revisions are. And so, jobs were bumpy at best in 2025. So we can only hope that 2026 is much better. The unemployment rate went up, but certainly lower than I would think a lot expected. I think when it comes to costs, there's no question when it comes to, energy prices, especially oil and gasoline at the pump. Those are some of the absolutely strongest issues for the president. But I could argue the flip side. When you get your monthly bills or when you're looking at utility costs, natural gas is up, 15%. Maybe 10%. I don't want to exaggerate. I think it's 9.8 exactly for the year. Electricity, 6%. And of course, depends where you live. Coffee prices up 18%, beef up 17%. So healthcare up 13%. So I would say many of the things that are front and center on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for you and your family feels expensive. So, yes, affordability is an issue. And so, and then the other thing is, and this is where, you and I have been on the same page. I'm probably a little more extreme on my thoughts. Liberation Day to me was a disaster because I have never been supportive of a. By
the way, just hold on, Robert, just to remind people, because a lot of people who don't follow politics, Liberation Day, remind people what was that?
Yeah, so Liberation Day was when the president, which is what was part of the reason he was elected, was to put tariffs on a lot of the foreign countries that we trade with. And my approach, and I've been consistent, whether it's Biden or Trump 1.0 or Obama 1.0 or 2.0, I have only supported tariffs from a blunt perspective, whether it's on tires or steel dumping or solar panels, never across the board, meaning I would never think we should put a tariff on bananas that we don't actually have here and we have to import, or coffee, or certain things that make it more expensive. And I have been arguing since April that it is a tax on the consumer. And I believe this administration has been gaslighting the American public by saying it's not, because we just came out with year-end numbers where a nonpartisan think tank came out that 92% of all tariffs have been paid by the importer, which are the U.S. companies that bring it in, and or the consumer. 92%, which is what economists would have expected. Yeah. And Steve, my last point, and therefore it became a tax on the consumer by about $1,000 per year per family. So, so let me respond to that. Affordability is front and center.
Okay. So those are all good points. Let me respond and then see what you have to say about this. So certainly I agree that if you put a tax on something, a lot of times that tax is going to filter right on through to the final consumer. That's, by the way, when I've been against high business taxes, because businesses will just pass those taxes on. And I'm not saying about this but some of the people on the left are kind of hypocritical. They say, well, the tariff is going to be paid by the consumer, but these other taxes are not. And eventually they do filter onto the consumer. And so you are right about that. On the other hand, Trump did the big, beautiful tax bill. And so that bill actually reduced people's taxes. And so when you take the two things combined, and I'd like your views on this because I've been thinking about it myself and I'm not sure what to make of it. But if you look at like the most recent numbers that came out from the Congressional Budget Office, what has happened is that tariff revenues were up, Robert, but other tax revenues like corporate tax revenues and some of the individual income tax revenues were down. So in other words, what Trump was doing essentially was almost trading the higher tariffs for the lower income taxes. And I would be sort of in favor of that, but what is your thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me that's a regressive tax. And so I wouldn't be in favor of that because that hurts middle America and lower income America more than it's going to hurt me or you. I'm a wealthy guy. Whether I get
hold on, but
let me just finish.
If a business is hold on, we need employers though. I mean, if you're taxing employers, they're going to hire fewer workers, aren't they?
Wait, time out. We were just talking about the tariff part versus the business. By the way, I'm for lower taxes. Okay, I'm not sure I would have gone to 18 or 21%, but I'm not looking for a business tax to be higher. And by the way, you and I once agreed on a minimum global tax at like 15 or 18%, so people didn't divert employment overseas. Right. So, by the way, you and I have been somewhat similar on this, although I don't believe in trickle down, you do. But my point is a little different. I was not talking about what I was trying to get at is I think that's a regressive tax. Right. My point is what we're seeing in employment is that because of maybe artificial intelligence or skilled workers or whatever it may be, we're seeing productivity do better. We're not actually seeing employment do better. So we're not sure exactly how it's impact the worker. We know in manufacturing, there's 100,000 less manufacturing jobs. So we know that, it has, I would argue with blue collar workers, it's gone the other way. So I think it's like I said, I could argue the glass is half full or half empty. Today I'm arguing half empty, but, I could argue the other side too.
So let me ask you a couple more questions. I'm talking to Robert Wolf, who you see him on Fox News all the time. He was with UBS. By the way, did you ever have an official, I know you've been a longtime friend and advisor to President Obama. Did you have some kind of official position in his administration?
So I had 3 presidential appointments under him on the President's Economic Advisory Board under Paul Volcker, on their Export Council when we did trade, and on their Jobs Council. And then the last 2 years of Biden's administration, I was advising the Pentagon. So definitely played heavily at the intersection.
Got it. Did you say this commission was under Volcker?
Yeah, the first 2 years under President Obama, I worked for Paul Volcker. And
what did you think of him?
I love Paul Volcker. He's one of my close friends. I was obviously at his funeral. He is, one of my idols. I was probably one of those,
Mine too.
I was a Wall Street guy in the 80s, so I was a Reagan Democrat, as you would call it.
Right. So, by the way, Paul Volcker, for those who don't follow this stuff as closely as Robert and I do, he was the one who really drained the inflation out of the system in the 80s. And he was actually a Jimmy Carter appointee, but I think he was one of our great Fed chairmen.
I think he was the greatest of all time. He brought inflation from 25% when we had inflation, and during the time of the Iran scandals that we had in Russia, where gas went off the charts. I mean, you could say he single-handedly taught everyone how to battle inflation while wanting a strong dollar.
So we're going to do a speed round because there's a bunch of things I've been wanting to ask you about. So just quick answers up. Are we going to face another banking crisis like we faced in 2008?
Well, I was at the Lehman crisis that weekend as one of the 8 executives running UBS. The answer is no, because leverage in the system at the banking sector has been taken down incredibly much lower, from 30 times down to like 12 to 15. So no.
So safe. The banks are pretty safe, right? Okay. Second question. You didn't give me your prognosis on where the economy is headed now, where we're at today versus where do you think we'll be a year from now? Would you be buying stocks? Do you think that this is what do you see it?
Yeah. So let me just be clear. I don't think we're going to hit the 15% GDP growth that the president thinks. And
you're not that bullish.
I know it was a friendly, I'd call that an advertisement between my friend Larry and the president. But listen, I think if we hit 3 to 3.5% GDP growth, I think we'll feel pretty good, especially if inflation, I think we can because, listen, foreign direct investment, it's not at the president's numbers, but it seems like there's real foreign direct investment coming in. It feels to me that some of this artificial intelligence and productivity should really impact, hoping wages go up. I mean, I have concerns, so I would be happy at 3.5, partly because I'm hoping inflation, stays below 3, which it feels like it will to me. But, we have an incredible amount of geopolitical risk that could impact us. So I would say I'm bullish on the economy, but I'm probably not as bullish on jobs. And that's why probably, if I was the Fed, I would be reducing rates. I have more concern about the job market than I do inflation right now.
And what do you think of our Trump's new appointment for the Federal Reserve Chairman?
Huge fan of Kevin Warsh. I think he's smart. I knew him, a bit during the Lehman crisis when he was working, at the Fed. He's a sharp guy. He's probably going to be a little more hawkish than Powell, and certainly than
hold on. Just because we have a lot of non-economists. What does that mean?
That.
Hawkish means he's going to fight inflation.
He'll care a little more about inflation and a strong dollar, and so he would probably gear towards raising rates than lowering rates. But I think he'll have I think who's ever the Fed chair will have a real eye on the jobs market and the impact of artificial intelligence on the jobs market.
Okay. And then finally, talking to Robert Wolf, who is, one of the smartest Democrats I know. But I want to ask you about a nonpartisan issue. It's just, we do see this incredible revolution coming in technology, in robotics, artificial intelligence. It's just astonishing how quickly it is changing our world. And it is going to dramatically change the way, Robert, we work, what kind of professions. I've said on the show, in 15 years, we probably won't have too many truck drivers left. We have 2 million truck drivers. Trucks will be automated. Factories are going to be automated, et cetera. So how do you see that playing out for the American workers? You said, we lost manufacturing jobs next year, but a lot of factories will be automated with robots. Is it a good thing or bad thing? How do you see it playing out?
Well, I'm incredibly nervous because I think that the job market is going to be very barbelled. We're going to have junior people come in to do a check and balance on what artificial intelligence can do. And I think we'll have at the senior level people really setting the vision and the tone for the business. So I'm really nervous about this, what I would call this mid-level, jobs, which is disproportionate. The largest number of jobs is mid-level. So yeah, I'm very nervous. I think we're going to have higher productivity, and I think it's going to absolutely disintermediate a lot of jobs. Yeah. So I'm concerned, and I am only hopeful that artificial intelligence is regulated. I've also been a supporter of regulating social and digital media, similar to news.
So that is Robert Wolf. He is Robert. I need to make you a regular on the show because we really appreciate your insights.
I'd love to
Robert
come
Wolf.
on. I'm a fan of your owner. I'm a fan of you and Larry. Happy to come on. Well, Robert, you and I have been sparring for over a decade, so we're still both.
Has it been that long? It's amazing. Well, you're my favorite Democrat, my friend. And I know you're Larry Kudlow's favorite Democrat too. Folks, we'll be right back. When we come back, we'll be taking your calls, 1-800-848-9222. My producer in New York says we have 2 open lines. I want to hear from you. Do you agree with me or do you agree with Robert Wolf? Or are you in the middle of this debate? 1-800-848-9222. And we'll be right back.